All right, welcome. We're going to dive right into a topic that's absolutely vital for every single professional working in the autism field. We're talking about building a really clear, evidence-based framework for how we choose the right interventions.
As clinicians, as educators, we are constantly navigating this just massive landscape of therapeutic options. It can be overwhelming, right? And it brings up the central challenge for all of us. How do we cut through the noise and make sure what we're doing is genuinely effective, completely ethical, and truly person-centered?
The answer, and really the guiding principle for this whole explainer, is a rock-solid commitment to evidence-based practice. It's the standard. It's what separates truly meaningful support from some of the pseudoscience that's unfortunately out there.
So, to put evidence-based practice into action, we need a structure. This means we have to move beyond just a single, narrow focus. Instead, we need to organize our interventions across several different but interconnected functional domains.
And these domains, they really cover the whole person's life. We're looking at everything from the fundamentals of communication and mental health to sensory processing, behavior, and of course, education and just daily living skills. The real insight here is that none of these exist in a vacuum. You make progress in one area, and it almost always supports growth in the others. It's why this integrated model is so essential.
And this isn't just a nice idea. It's grounded in a global standard of care. This quote from the World Health Organization makes it crystal clear. They're telling us that comprehensive, multidisciplinary assessments are not optional. They are the absolute foundation for tailoring interventions to a person's unique profile of needs and strengths.
Okay, so we've got this framework, but how do we actually navigate the mountain of evidence for all the specific therapies out there? Well, that brings us to a really practical tool designed just for this kind of clinical navigation, the Autherapies Evidence Database.
Now, it's really important to understand what this is and what it isn't. This is not just some big list of recommended therapies. Think of the Autherapies database as a dynamic knowledge map. It's free, it's accessible, and its whole purpose is to empower us as professionals to navigate the field with clarity, armed with a clear, synthesized view of the current science.
The real power of this database comes from its 5-level classification system. High evidence means there's a strong scientific consensus behind it. Medium and low mean an approach might be promising, but we need to proceed with some caution. And then, critically, the database flags things that are dangerous because of known risks or not recommended because there's just no credible evidence. Having this clear hierarchy is frankly a game changer for making informed clinical decisions. And this tool is built for action, for you, the professional. The process is straightforward. You explore, you compare the evidence, you read the summaries to really get the how and the for whom. But just as importantly, you have to reflect on the ethical notes, thinking about autonomy and consent. All of that information then becomes the solid foundation for a real collaborative discussion with the individual and their family. So what does this look like in the real world? Let's take this framework and apply it. We'll do a quick comparative analysis of some common interventions to see how they actually stack up.
This slide gives you a perfect snapshot of that evidence spectrum. Over in the high evidence column, you've got the heavy hitters like EIBI, that's the intensive form of ABA, and functional communications training, FCT, for replacing challenging behaviors. Then, in medium evidence, you see things like TEACCH, with its focus on structured teaching, or the SCERTS model. They're all valuable tools for sure, but understanding their different levels of empirical validation is a key distinction for any practitioner.
And if you want to quantify the impact of these high-evidence interventions, just look at this number. A major meta-analysis found that intensive ABA therapy was linked to an average IQ increase of 17 points compared to control groups. That is a huge, statistically significant marker of what is possible with early, intensive, evidence-based work.
But here's the thing, raw data and evidence levels, they're only part of the story. Now we have to talk about the really critical final piece of the puzzle, the clinical art and science of application, especially individualization and generalization. This brings us to one of the biggest challenges in our field, generalization. It's that age-old question, right? A skill can look perfect in a structured, clinical setting, but does it actually transfer to the messiness of the real world? A skill isn't truly mastered until it works across different places, with different people, in different situations. And that gap between the clinic and real life? It is very real, and it's measurable. One pretty stark study found that 40% of kids who responded really well to ABA in the clinic showed way less improvement at home. That just hammers home why we have to be planning for generalization from day one.
So this is how we bridge that gap. This is why effective individualization isn't just a nice to have. It's not negotiable. It has to start with detailed assessments, and not just at the beginning, but ongoing. It means setting goals that are targeted, yes, but also relevant and flexible. And it absolutely requires the active involvement of family and community, plus continuous training for everyone involved, professionals and caregivers alike. That's the formula.
So let's wrap up with a thought that I think perfectly synthesizes everything we've covered. Science alone is not enough. Ethical reflection, cultural context, and the lived experience of autistic people are essential dimensions in evaluating any intervention. This really captures that balance we have to strike. It's about grounding our practice in rigorous evidence, absolutely, but always centering it on the humanity, the dignity, and the autonomy of the people we're here to serve.